The other day, we were out with a little bit, having a terrific time. Pulled up to a set of lights close to home, foot on the brake went straight to the floor. Terrifying moment, to be honest. Today I'm going to walk you through how I diagnosed what the problem was, and spoiler alert, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today we're tackling a brake failure that happened in my 56 Series 109. Now when your brake pedal goes directly down to the floor, it's usually one of a few things, and we'll start from worst case to best case scenario. Master cylinder failure, there's a brake line leak, one of your wheel cylinders has gone into complete failure, or best case scenario, there's a little bit of air in the system. The most critical thing to understand when you're talking about these early Series 1s is that they only have a single line brake system. So what that means is that it's one brake line that feeds all four wheels. So if any part of that system fails, again, the master cylinder, a hose, wheel cylinder, anywhere at all, you actually lose all of your brakes. There is no backup circuit like there is in the modern dual circuit systems. That's why it's always imperative that you have your handbrake in perfect working order for an emergency backup. Now, I went through the whole diagnosis process thinking that it was actually the master cylinder, and I was completely wrong. I'm going to show you what actually happened and then how we went about fixing it as well. Step one is to check the brake fluid reservoir. If it's empty, it means you've got a leak somewhere. Now mine was still 3/4 full, which made me immediately think that it was an internal master cylinder because I wasn't leaking externally. Step two is to look for any external leaks. Now I checked all four wheels for damp spots, fluid that's leaking potentially onto the inside of the drums, damp backing plates, any kind of leaky brake fluid, and I couldn't find any to that point. All bone dry. So I'd replaced all four wheel cylinders a few weeks ago, so I knew that they were good. So we've got no leaks at the wheels, no leaks on the brake lines. Everything at that point absolutely pointed towards it was a master cylinder failure. And the reasoning for that was reservoir full, check. No external leaks, check. No pressure building, check. So for me, that was textbook master cylinder failure. I'd even actually started planning a video on the actual master cylinder replacement. One last final check though, I wanted to remove the drums off, particularly the front wheels, just to see if I was 100% correct that it was a master cylinder failure. And that's when I found it. Look at this brake hose here. So you can see that there's a hole right in the center here, about midway point down, where it's obviously caught some debris or it's been rubbing on the wheel. Now when I pumped the brake with the drum actually on, brake fluid was literally squirting straight out of this hole. That's where all the hydraulic pressure was actually going. So what's happened here? I'm assuming that I potentially have caught some debris when we were a little more off-road when we're down at Gundagai. Maybe a stick or a rock that's potentially punctured it, or even the potential that it was actually caught rubbing on the inside of the wheel. Now when the drum was off, the system actually had no resistance, so I couldn't actually see the leak. Put the drum back on, the brake's actually trying to work, the pressure has escaped through this hole. Now again, remembering it's a single line system, so any one hole in one hose meant that I actually had zero brakes. Not reduced braking, not one circuit still working, absolutely nothing. And again, that's the reality of these early series Land Rovers. This is a classic case of not what I expected. That's why it's always important to diagnose every single part of a proposed problem before you start throwing parts to it. So here are the bits that we need for the job, and it's relatively simple. I'm hoping that it's inside an hour, including the actual bleeding of the brakes itself. So the first piece is, of course, a new brake hose. So this one here, it's part number 268341. I'll pop a link down below as well. But it fits the Land Rover Series 1s for the front. Obviously the rears, particularly in a long wheelbase, are slightly different. But this is what fits from 54 onwards, I should note as well. And this was $19.50, $19.95, just under $20 for the part itself. Now the next bit are some copper sealing washers. So I'm assuming that when I pull the old ones off that there's going to be some copper washers attached to the actual unions itself. I picked up a 280 piece assortment. Again, I'll pop the link down below for about $14, $15. Now you're going to need two washers, one for each end of the hose, but 280 piece assortment, this set is going to last me for years to come. The next piece is obviously some brake fluid itself. So I use .4 within the Series 1, so we need a top up for when we're actually bleeding the brakes into the reservoir as well. Some brake cleaner. So we are going to need to clean the drum itself and make sure that there's no residue on the inside for that as well. So we'll do that before we actually refit the drum itself. So to be fair, that's the majority of the tools and, or I guess the consumables that we'll be using. Less than $35 to get it done. So much better than a master cylinder, which sits at around the $400 mark. This piece here I'm going to talk to once we get to the actual bleeding as well, but this is, you can get a single bleed brake kit. Obviously it's far better if you've got two people doing it, so I'm going to actually have a helper pushing the brake pedal, but this is just something that Dean and I fastened up when we did the wheel cylinders a couple of weeks ago. Alright, so the first job is obviously to get the old hose off. Now we've got the wheel off, the drum off, as we've talked about. Now we've got her up on the hoist, so she's nice and secure, and we've of course gone around and double checked again that all the safety security points and the locking mechanisms are in place. Now if you're doing this at home, of course a home jack or jack stance, I should say, works absolutely fine. You just want to make sure, of course, as always, safety first, that the vehicle is nice and secure and stable. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the brake line from the hose itself. So I am using a 1/4 Whitworth on this. Now they're going to be tight because obviously, you know, after 70 odd years or so, there's going to be some brake fluid dripping out underneath. So I've got something to catch that in as well. I've also sprayed them with obviously some WD-40, so just to try and get some of that off, or to at least aid in the removal as well. So we can see some drips coming now. There we go. Okay. So that's okay. So I might just leave that to drip and catch here. Yep. So that's good. Almost off. Okay, so there we have the top off. Tuck that in there for now. Okay, so now we undo the other union, or the bottom half from the actual wheel cylinder that's obviously at the front here. So we will undo that guy. So of course different size. So here's a 16 mil, the bottom one. Here we go. Oh, and that one did have a copper washer on. So you can see he actually did have a copper washer on, this guy here. So let's make sure that we put one back on. So interestingly, the other side didn't. So what I think I'm going to do is actually replace and put one on each. So that's it from a removal standpoint, which is good. Now we will measure up and have a look and see. Hopefully it'll be Ricky Tick back the same way. So here we have the old with the hole, and then the new. So couplings are the same there, it's just a little bit more length. So let's make sure that we can get it in the correct way and then make sure that it's tucked out of sight. The most important thing is that it obviously doesn't have any kinks, as it's in as straight as possible and then tucked away as best as possible as well. So we'll just get our copper washers ready and then we will we'll give it a go. New copper washer on. I'm going to do the into the wheel cylinder, so the bottom first, and we're going to try not super, just hand tight. We don't want to crush the washers, but I just need some flexibility then in regards to maneuvering it around equally. So alright, so that's the bottom in after some serious faffing around. What a nightmare. So we bent around 47 different ways and tried to, because the end, obviously the coupling is the same, but the length is a little challenging. So trying to get it in, I didn't want to have to remove the axle and to get some space in behind the backing plate, etc. So I was ready to throw it, to be honest. So we're in. So now for the top side, which is obviously going to be far easier. So we'll get that done. Oh. That should be. That's on, top on, bottom on, out of the way, which is obviously the most important part. I don't know if I should have had it around that way or not. So I'm going to leave it there. So that is definitely out of the way compared to how the other one was. It's as straight as possible without obviously having kinks. So I'm assuming that we're good. Obviously, we need to bleed the brake now, and we need to bleed this side. So because this was the only side that there was air escaping. If it was the master cylinder, or pressure I should say. So if it was the master cylinder, then you're starting again and you would have to bleed all 4. And the way that you would do it is you'd work diagonally back from where the master cylinder is located. So since it's on the passenger, at the driver's side, so you would start with rear passenger side, then you would do driver's side, then you would come up the front to the one that we're on here, you would bleed this side, and then you would bleed the driver's side last. So we don't thankfully have to do that, we only have to do the one side. But what we do need to do is clean up the drum, get the drum back on, and then go ahead and bleed from there. Okay, so now with the drum back on properly, we can actually bleed this wheel. When it comes to actually bleeding the system, you can do it solo if you have a one-way valve. It's much easier with 2 people. So what we've got is we connect this makeshift, just this tube, basically to the breather at the back, pull the dust cap off, attach it, pump the pedal, so have the person inside the car pump the brake pedal a couple of times, hold the pedal down, then crack the nut at the back, allow the fluid to come out. There'll be bubbles that are through that, so you wait for that to clear, tighten it back up, release the pedal, and you do that a number of times until there's actually no air bubbles going back into either obviously via the tube and then into the container. But we're going to show you the process right now. The only important bit to remember is to make sure that the reservoir is at an adequate level. You certainly do not want it to be below a certain point either, otherwise you're then just forcing more air into the lines as well. Okay. All right. Okay, so there's fluid, bubbles. We believe that it's bled properly now. There was no more air bubbles coming out. So the nipple's back on. That's the aftermath. So it is obviously tyre back on. We're going to check, we're going to pump the brake a few times and check if there's any leaks around the unions. Tyre back on properly, nuts on obviously, tighten it up, and then we're going to take it for a very, very slow, safe drive just on one of the closed streets around the corner here to give it a test. So fingers crossed. Okay, so here goes the real test. So brakes feel firmer for sure. So we're just going to back it out. And then we'll go. This will tell us. Well, it's braking as we're going back, so that's a very good sign. It's a good start, but the test will be when we actually go around the corner and then take it for a little further drive. So we will try that in a moment. So I just went around and checked the unions. They all seem to be dry, but the test, as we said, will be we go around the corner here. brakes. Slowing down, we have brakes. So there you have it, brake hose replacement on a Series 1. Now what was the big lesson here? Never assume. I was absolutely convinced that it was the master cylinder that was at fault. And it was only through going through the proper diagnosis, step by step, that I was actually able to figure out and ascertain exactly what it actually was. So the lesson again, if you have catastrophic brake failure, if the pedal is going to the floor, remember to go through the steps. Step 1, check the fluid that's in the reservoir. Step 2, check for any external leaks. Step 3 would be to check the wheel cylinders. And step 4, go back and test that feel of the brake pedal. Now, remembering if you're doing it with the drum off, you're not going to get the result that you need. Make sure that the drum is actually on and then systematically go through the steps once again to understand actually what it was. On a serious note though, of course, remember that because it is a single line system, any leak, any puncture, any drop in fluid, anything like that, the wheel cylinder failure or indeed the master cylinder failure, you lose complete brakes. So the most important thing is to always ensure that your handbrake is in tip-top shape. It's the only safety measure that you've actually got in these vehicles as well. If you're working on a Series 1 and you've had something similar from a braking standpoint, drop a comment below, let us know how you fared. If the video has helped you out at all, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so as well. Let's continue learning together, making mistakes and learning and diagnosing these fantastic machines all together as a community. Let's continue getting our hands dirty, and I'll see you in the next one.